Happy New Year! I hope you had a good New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Like many of you guys, I spent New Year's Eve watching Stranger Things. Actually, in the UK, it released at 1 a.m., so it was more of I spent the New Year's Day watching Stranger Things, and I thought I would like to talk about my feelings on the finale. I know this is a book channel, but I've always wanted to talk about TV series and music. In fact, when I created this channel, I also mentioned it in the bio, that in the channel's bio, that I want to talk about um, music and movies and TV series in addition to books. So, on that note, let's talk about Stranger Things finale. There is a reel going around in Instagram that perfectly describes how I felt about the Stranger Things finale.
How can it be both?
It can't.
It can't. But it is. It's paradoxical, and yet it works.
It wasn't a disaster like the Game of Thrones finale or even the How I Met Your Mother finale, but I was still quite underwhelmed by the ending. But before I get into the things that disappointed me, I want to talk about the things that I really liked. I liked how the show ended. I think the epilogue of the show was really well done. I don't think it should have been 40 minutes long though. So I googled how long the finale was going to be, and when Vecna was killed, after that I was like, oh, there's 40 minutes left. And all through the epilogue, I was expecting Henry to come back in. So I was on edge. I was like, is he going to come back? Because I couldn't imagine the epilogue being 40 minutes long. However, having said that, I really liked how they ended all of the characters. I really liked Dustin's valedictorian speech and the nod to Eddie. I really loved how they ended the show on a D&D game, and they also showed the tradition being continued by Holly and Derek and the kids. And it also showed like life goes on despite all the hardships. Talking about the D&D game brings us to the big debate, did Elle die? In my opinion, Elle died because if you think about it logically, when Kali was shot, she was bleeding very heavily. She was minutes away from death. And the probability of her surviving while Elle finished her fight with Vecna is very, very slim. And even if she survived, she wouldn't be strong enough to cast such a strong illusion. So in my opinion, Mike's whole story about Elle was more of a coping mechanism, especially because it came after his conversation with Hopper, where he's like, you have to make peace with the choices other people made and you have to continue to live. So I really felt that it was just a story that Mike was telling himself in order to move on. And it sort of was reaffirmed by the friends' reaction when all of them said, I believe, in a very bittersweet way instead of saying it in a happy way. So, in my opinion, Elle did die. Coming to what I disliked about the finale, I absolutely hated how Henry or Vecna was killed. What Stranger Things has done really well is that they've escalated the level of evil with each season by killing off characters, critical characters, at the right time. That's the whole point. How do you induce terror into the viewers? By showing them that these characters can die. So in season 1, Barb was killed, Will was kidnapped, and we are shown the Demogorgon. In season 2, we are shown that it's not just one Demogorgon, but it's an army of these Demodogs that can come and kill you at any time. Plus, Joyce's partner, the Dr. Bob, I think, he's killed. Dustin's cat is killed by a baby Demogorgon. So we are shown that these creatures are dangerous even as babies or as children. In season 3, Billy is killed. We are shown the Mind Flayer. We are shown what this sort of abstract evil thing can do just by being around people, and like it can invade minds. So that was another layer or an escalation of terror that the Duffer Brothers had created. And then in season 4, all hell breaks loose when Vecna arrives. I still remember the scene when Eddie is with Chrissy, and then Chrissy just flies up on the roof and her bones start breaking. That was a terrifying scene, and that is what they've done well. They've killed off characters at the right time. So, at the cost of sounding morbid, I'm going to say that I disliked that they did not kill any characters in this show, with the exception of Kali, which, let's be real, nobody was really attached to. And even Elle, there was a question mark at the end. Like, you as viewers have to decide whether she died or not. So I felt that was a cop out. Another thing I disliked about the finale was the shape that the mind flayer took. And it kind of looked like a spider. And a lot of people were saying, yeah, it makes sense because Will used to draw spiders in season 2. That's fine, but even the mind flayer sort of looked like a spider in season 2 when it was like this abstract thing. I always thought of the mind flayer as this ball of evil energy that does not have any shape, and it can take any form, and that is the most terrifying part of it, that you can never probably recognize what or who a mind flayer is. For me, that was more terrifying. Don't get me wrong, I thought the creature was cool and all, and that scene where sort of Elle is going into the mouth of the mind flayer and the mind flayer is like opening its mouth, that was a really cool scene, which I know now that it is apparently a scene from the final season of Attack on Titan. I haven't watched the final season of Attack on Titan, so thank you for that spoiler. So yeah, the scene was cool and all, but the mind flayer is not supposed to be cool, it's supposed to be terrifying. There were two endings that I would have been okay with. One ending is a very popular theory online that was going around after season 4 and even halfway through season 5. And that was Henry doesn't realize that he's a victim. And the moment he realizes that he's a victim of the mind flayer, he's going to switch sides. And he, along with the three other people with supernatural powers, 11, Will, and Kali, are going to bring down the mind flayer. This makes sense because a supernatural being like Mind Flayer has to be negated by another supernatural being. So that made a lot of sense. However, I was not as mad about the creators not going in this direction because Henry was 10 years old when the Mind Flayer took control of him, and he's the same age as Joyce, I think. So he's in is his mid 40s. So he has been under the Mind Flayer's control for more than 3 decades. So it would be very difficult for him to, I don't know, separate himself from the Mind Flayer and realize that he's not the evil one. So I'm not too mad about the creators not going in this direction. This is how I envisioned the finale. I envisioned absolute chaos in Hawkins and Upside Down. I expected the Demogorgons, the Demodogs, the Demobats, and other demonic critters to just descend upon the Upside Down and Hawkins and kill people left, right, center. Also, what happened to all these creatures? Were they chilling at a cafe while their core was being demolished? I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what was the point of the whole Night King type of resurrection scene if these creatures were not going to make an appearance in the final episode. I envisioned all these creatures to be in the Upside Down and Hawkins and kill everybody while Vecna and the Mind Flayer were in the abyss doing their own thing and being invincible. And I expected a few of the main characters to die. I, in fact, expected Mike to die. Hear me out, hear me out. Every time Elle or Will have done something iconic on the show, have done something extraordinary on the show has come from a place of anger or grief. Even in season 5, part 1, when Will gets his powers where he breaks the bones of the Demogorgons, his family and friends were minutes away from death, seconds away from death. So, this is how I thought the finale would be. I thought Mike would die, and because of this, Elle and Will would lose their minds, they would go batshit crazy, and they would level up and unlock a power that they did not think they had, and they would then together bring down Vecna and Mindflayer. A villain like Vecna and an otherworldly supernatural creature like the Mind Flayer has to be killed using other supernatural powers. The idea that a group of kids, no matter how resilient, can kill a creature like that using flare guns and shotguns is just silly. It doesn't make sense. When you create an iconic supervillain like Vecna, you owe it to the character to give them a proper send off. Don't hack its head off. That scene made no sense to me. I was watching the scene and I wasn't even angry. I just was so confused. I was like, why are they doing it? Because the Duffer Brothers have established that the mothers in the show are iconic. They are badasses who cannot be messed with, whether it's Joyce, Mrs. Wheeler, they've all been extremely strong characters. So I felt like this scene was unnecessary. And I was borderline offended that instead of killing the character using supernatural powers, they were like decapitating him. So, long story short, I loved the epilogue of the finale. I hated how Vecna was killed. So, yeah, those were my opinions on the Stranger Things finale. What did you think of it? That's it for today. See you next time. Bye.